Looks perfect, Michelle. I'll let you take it away from here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Tommy. Thank you to the Better Business Bureau, Gorham Savings Bank, Portland Regional Chamber. It is an honor and a privilege to be here with you today, presenting from Raymond, Maine, and looking out at a very rainy view, but have enjoyed so much the topics that were presented today. I've taken away a lot, and I can't wait to watch the replay videos because I think there's a lot that I will take into my business. I want to get right into it. I have a ton of things that I would love to share for you today, my 9 strategies for business growth. My goal for you today, in keeping with the theme of today's content, is to keep it simple. So my challenge for you is to take one thing with you that you will grow your business or your nonprofit or your career today, because I think they can be used for any one of those things. And one of the things that I've realized during COVID, and I think Rich Brooks may have said this to me early on, he said, I don't want to get to the end of this and wish I would have. And that's how I felt since I got home from vacation on March 17th to a brand new world and a very changed business and an upside down business for all of my clients. I've made the commitment, even with COVID brain or lizard brain or whatever you want to call it, to continue to move forward because things change. Obstacles get in our way, but my goals didn't change. I was sitting in my bedroom last night getting ready for bed, and I have a huge 60 by 40 goal board that hangs on the wall in my bedroom. And I have personal goals, and my husband and I have goals as a couple, and our business goals are up there. And as I looked at those goals, I thought, you know, my business goals, my personal goals have not changed in the last 3 months, but the path that I'm going to take to get there has. And that's the constant in this new business world that we're living in, is how am I going to still get where I want to go? And one of the things that I have tried to keep in mind over and over again is remembering why I started. I started my business at 21. You can see the photo here on the screen of myself and ZIG ZIGLAR back in the day. That is not an actor. That is the real live deal there. Not sure what was up with the cowboy hat. But my dream was to be a speaker, to be a trainer, really to make an impact in the world. My biggest goal as a teenager was I wanted to be able to take the things that I read in motivational books and listen to on tapes, and I wanted to be able to apply it to my life. And then I wanted to be able to apply it to my business. And so my impact, the why I started, was really to be a cheerleader of people, which has been transitioned into being a cheerleader of businesses. So if you need some encouragement today, I'm here to say that it has been rough. It's been different. In some ways, we're not as productive as we have been. And in other ways, I'm inspired by how businesses have been more productive than ever. I have watched businesses fight so hard for their businesses these last few months, to be creative, to do it in spite of whatever obstacles came their way. So my number one tip for business growth is to choose growth. Growth is not easy. It comes with a price. It comes with repeated action. To have a growth mindset means we believe we can change. And there are two things two kinds of change. A newsletter, I'm going to go out and take a run. And then there's change that happens to us, like COVID, change we didn't choose, but we still get to choose to grow through. Second tip for business growth, take a look at your current business. What's happening? What's happened in the last 3 months? What's happened in the last 30 days? What are you seeing that's different? And I think the number one thing that I'm helping clients with right now is financials and employees. HR has become more important than ever. And I think for many of us working virtually, and many of my clients that have large virtual teams, staying connected, communicating, making sure that we're all still moving in the same direction towards the same vision is more important than ever before. And I also think your pipeline is something that we cannot take our eyes off. We've heard a few marketing presentations today, and unfortunately, often when the urgent comes up, we as business owners stop looking at the important and focus all of our attention on the urgent. And while there have been a lot of urgent things that have happened that need our attention, safety and crisis and transitioning people from working in the office to working at home, it's easy to stop looking at our pipeline and what we're doing for marketing. I've always said that in a recession, and I saw this after 9/11, that the first things to go were consultants, speakers, and marketing consultants. And I'm really glad to say that that has not happened. And that gives me hope that when I talk to my colleagues and others in my field, we have stayed busy and people have continued to reach out. And that says to me, you are working on growing your businesses. So a couple of the things that, to ask, what's the number one thing that's working? What's one thing that could work better? And what's one thing that needs your immediate attention? And whatever that immediate attention item is, maybe it's an important task versus an urgent, do it now. We often have the tendency of putting those things that are important that we really do need to do, we move them from the to-do list from one week to the next. Tip of the day, take a Post-it note if you're working wherever you're working, or write it down on a piece of paper and put that one thing in front of you and do it now. Now would not be the best time, I don't think, to create a full-blown strategic plan unless business has gotten to the point where you've got some breathing room. But I would suggest either updating or creating a very simple strategic plan for moving forward for the next 6 months. One of my current clients said, at times like these, we need to focus more, not less, attention on strategy. And they actually held strategy sessions like 30 days into COVID and set aside a half a day really to restructure and take a look at what their strategic plan was for the year. What needed to change? Where did they need to adjust? And fortunately for them, strategic planning was a company-wide process. So no matter where you're at, take a look at, maybe it's a simple strategy. Maybe it's, I'm just going to outline the 3 key strategies that I need to do before the end of the year. And thinking back to Paula's presentation on the 4 squares, what are those things that you want to make sure that the company handles by the end of the year? Again, keeping in mind the important, the working on the business, the things that aren't the, managing safety and managing taking orders, but the things that are really going to help you continue to be creative, not only in 2020, but beyond. And so some of the issues have changed. Some of the assumptions that we make about business have changed. But I truly believe that taking that time to do some strategic planning will help the business and your people to engage the rest of your people. If you're interested, I have just a 1-page PDF that has a really simple plan. I would be more than glad to send you if you shoot me an email. Next up, narrow your lane. This is also a theme that we've heard today. I've heard from many people, and Rich alluded to this in the previous session, overcomplicating too many choices confuses us. I had a mentor once say to me, a confused mind always says no. Now is not the time to add a bunch of services unless there's a very strategic need. So narrow your lane, narrow what you're offering. I narrowed my ideal client during this time very, very, very narrow. And some would say to me, Michelle, that was a bad time to do that. It's actually been the best time to do that because I've really gotten to work within 3 very, specific industries and be very deep instead of trying to go very wide. And so really narrowing, what it is you offer. And I think right now it's helping preserve bandwidth as well. There's a lot of us that are feeling overwhelmed. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs who said, man, I'm working harder now than I ever have in my entire life. And so by narrowing, we not only give the customer a less to choose from and less confusion, we have more clarity with we can deliver that. One of my coaches years ago, I was probably 23, 24, said to me, Michelle, you will never make it as a speaker if you have so many topics. And I think back then I had 7 pages of probably 4 or 5, presentations on each page of my website. It was a lot. And basically what my mentor said to me is, Michelle, you look like an expert on nothing. And I really was. I was a generalist. And so where we can, this is a good opportunity. When change is forced upon us, it's a good opportunity to make changes. If there are things that we've been doing that we want to narrow, or we want to do this one piece better, I think now is a great time. Setting very short-term SMART goals, I believe, has been really critical for my own business during this time. When I first got home from Mexico, I actually got into the airport. I think it was March 17th. I turned on my email after having been disconnected for 9 days, and the world had changed. And I, kind of on the plane on the way home, mapped out, okay, what did that next 90 days look like? And I am now looking forward to what those next 90 days are. But the first 90 days for me, it was very, very simple. Show up no matter what, no matter when, no matter where, for my current clients, for my family. And that was about it. I mean, I just focused, and I kept marketing very, very simple. So, what's mission critical in the next 90 days? Next is to know your numbers. I've had quite a few clients call and say, hey, I've gotten a PPP loan, or I've gotten an EIDL loan. What do I do now? So knowing your numbers, if you haven't known your numbers up until this point, now is a good time. There are so many free resources out there to help you to really understand, where are you at? I've had some clients that, unfortunately, I don't know if they'll come back from this. They're working on pivoting. They're working on figuring out how to get into new industries, but their cash flow literally stopped overnight. I have other companies that are, they're blowing their projections out of the water. And so making sure that we're adjusting those numbers, but accounting for the fact that there are a lot of increased expenses that we might not be thinking about. My husband loves to look out. He's always thinking about new business ideas, and we love to just brainstorm. But you think about all the signage and all of the sanitation, and then all of the cleaning that we're doing. How are we going to destroy furniture and cars and all of those things? And then what's going to be the solution for that? So then knowing the full financial picture of what your business looked like 3 months ago, but what it looks like in real time today, and really adjusting your projections for where you're going. Unfortunately, most business owners don't go out of business because they didn't have a fabulous idea. They went out of business because they ran out of money. And I remember years ago working with student entrepreneurs, and they had a fabulous product, and I'll keep it nameless. They're no longer in business, but they were told quite a few times. I had talked with them, and then a few mentors. I had actually brought in some other mentors, and they had talked with them as well. And they said, you've got a fantastic product. You've got passion and energy, but you either need to use cheaper products, cheaper raw materials, or you need to charge more. And they said, we can't do either. And so they went out of business. And so knowing our numbers is really key. The pipeline, what's coming into the pipeline. I had talked about pipeline a little bit before. My business coach makes me track the value of my pipeline, which has been an awesome exercise over the last 3 years, because I know, kind of what my projections are, how much I need in my pipeline, and what percentage of that's going to close. And again, here's where we sometimes take the eye off the important, because we're dealing with the urgent. We don't want to look at our numbers, and I don't want to take time to update my QuickBooks, or to learn how to do a cash flow projection, or to find somebody who knows how to do that. But now is a really good time. It's also been a wake-up call for many clients, and for many that I know, that having an emergency budget and having more cash on hand is really important. So as we plan for the future, making sure that as cash comes in, that we're keeping some of that cash flow. My husband and I own a construction company in Minnesota. Neither one of us numbers were our thing. And we had joined a $1 million roundtable with contractors from all over the country. And most of the people in our group were literally numbers nerds. And I remember one of the guys pulling me aside one night and he said, Michelle, if you don't learn to love your numbers and know your numbers, you're not going to be in business. And that was back in the building boom. And we saw as things, the housing crisis began to happen, that many of our competitors did go out of business. And so it's not a sexy topic, but it is a topic that I see over and over again is so extremely important, especially during a time like this. My favorite tip is to work on the business. If you know me or have spoke with me, you know that this is a topic that I talk about a lot. Again, it's the working on the business, working on the important. So things like strategic planning, things like workflow development, things like process. I am a process thinker. So I have a business plan. My family, when we were raising our kids, we had a family plan that was like a business plan for our family. But we took time to really work on the business and to work on our family. And one of the things my husband and I, we were away this weekend and we were talking about once again was just this concept of planning for. And in my business, I work on strategic planning and my paper trail and my customer service process so that I can get better at my business. And my husband and I did the same thing with our kids. We wrote a business plan probably 25 years ago that turned into a book that we worked on our family. And one of the things that stands out for us is we wrote a vision statement back in the day, probably 20 some years ago. And the vision was, when our kids are grown, they will come home because they want to, not because they have to. And today we have 3 grown kids and 3 beautiful granddaughters. And when they're here at the pool and they don't go home, my husband's like, you remember that vision? I'm like, yeah. He goes, it worked. Now can we send them home? So working on the business is important. And I love this quote that says, what is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. I think one of the books that changed my business the most over the years was The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And I know there's been many renditions of that, but he really helped me to see many years ago how creating a business that ran on process allowed me to be more creative. And for some of you right now, you may have more white space in your calendar. I've talked to some of my clients and they said, that first 2 months, 20 days, 30 days, 60 days, things were really busy and really full. And now there's been kind of a lull. If you're experiencing that, now would be a great time to do some of those things that you've planned to do for the business you've just put off. Engaging your team. This, I think, has been very difficult for some people during this season. I don't know about you, but Zoom and presenting virtually is so hard to connect. And so I hope that you feel the energy and the passion from the presenters today, because it's so much harder when we can't see you and we don't know that what you're thinking or how you're engaged. So really finding creative ways to engage your team. One of my clients, they're in the construction industry and they had to have a meeting. And so they met in a huge parking lot. They had cones, 10 feet apart, and everybody drove in with their, pickup, and they parked behind their spot and they got out and they had a big team meeting. But the company had gone so far the day before and they sent them home, or they sent them out, I think it was via email, Dunkin' Donuts gift cards, and said, hey, we can't serve you breakfast, but bring your breakfast and join us. So finding important ways and purposeful ways that you can engage the team. And I think one of the things that I've seen more so in these last months than ever before is people really just want to be listened to. I've spent a lot of time on Zoom just listening, some having, some conversations with tears with business owners, others with pure excitement about things that were happening, but acknowledging that this hasn't been the same experience for every one of your team members and finding creative ways to engage them. I think the most important is to just be honest, to be transparent, to communicate with them, and to recognize, even in the midst of what can be very stressful times and very different working on Zoom, is to take the time to recognize their accomplishments. So I challenge you, one simple way to do that is to start every team meeting, whether you're live or on Zoom, and everybody go around and share one accomplishment. And then maybe have each person share, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your current stress level? And so you really know how to show up for the team based on, how stressed are they and how much do they have on their plate right now? And finally, make one connection every day. My mentor continued to hound this into me over and over and over again for years. And he's just said, Michelle, every day is a day to make revenue. He'd ask me, what did you do today to generate revenue? During this season, while I'm still concerned about pipeline and generating revenue, one of the things that I have made a priority is to make a new connection, or to make a connection every day. And I've chose to do that when possible by phone, even if it's just leaving a voicemail for somebody saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. No need to call me back. I just wanted you to know I'm here, I care, and if you need to talk, let me know. So I think as I wrap this up, and I'll open it up for questions, I just want to say a couple things. Number one, I've had people ask me about, Michelle, is now a time to grow your business? Isn't your topic irrelevant as people are just trying to survive? And I would say, yes, we're trying to survive. Yes, we're doing it differently. And now is an excellent time to grow your business. I had one client say it very well a couple of weeks ago. He said, Michelle, if I'm not taking the time to grow during this time, my competitors are. And my hope is that as we, as a small business community here in Maine, that we continue to fight for the future of our business community. I am so proud to be a Mainer. Well, I'm from away, but to live here in Maine and to be a part of such a vibrant business community. So as you continue to fight for and push for the future of your business, my challenge question to you that I will end with is, what is one thing you can do today that your future business will thank you for? And with that, I will open it up for questions.
So Michelle, great job. This is Tommy again. Excellent presentation. If you want to open up the chat box there's a couple questions, or I can try to lob them to you if it's easier.
All right. So let's see. Provide an example of a business relocating their passion. So I have a company out in California. Their main clients were cruise ships and airlines, and they have completely transitioned. I can't tell you what it is because it's still in the works, but they have taken the technology that they have and the resources they have and have absolutely changed course. So that's one example. Of the 9 growth strategies, is there one that's a must? I absolutely believe the one that's a must is we have to choose to grow. And once we've done that, we have that growth mindset. The rest of those things, it's a matter of, what does my business need most and what's going to move the ball forward the most in the next, again, 90 days, think short term. I don't see if I saw any other questions.
I see another one at the bottom. It says, aside from this amazing presentation, what's the one thing you'll do today, Michelle?
What is the one thing I will do today? I actually have it on my schedule to call a past client who reached out to me, who I've not been able to connect with. So I'm going to connect with her again, or at least attempt to.
Excellent, excellent. I don't see any other questions coming through. Again, if people have questions, we do encourage you to put them in the chat function there, and we can either have Michelle read them or we can read them to her. But if we don't have any other questions, Michelle, excellent job. I'll remind everybody that this entire presentation will be available in the post-event email.